Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Bring the noise.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to the E-Tims podcast. This is a special follow-on podcast from our recent Football Only, where we thought, well, I was going to say segregate. Segregate is not a good word. I thought we'd specialise, we'd spotlight away from the football, the fans, the board, the current shenanigans, shareholdings, etc., etc. So I'm glad to say I have been joined by Monty, Ralph, Hector, James, Berta, Waskow, and Karen, not so happy Celtic lad. Good evening, folks. Thanks for joining.
Good
evening again, everyone. Good evening.
Hey, everyone. It's been a while.
Okay. So there's been a lot going on since we all last spoke, especially in the world of Celtic fans, Celtic board, etc. As we discussed before, Brian Wilson, Karen's friend and Hector's friend, meeting these four friends in Glasgow city centre, etc. We don't know how happy they would have been after the Hibs game. But Monty, I'm going to come to you. You have been the kind of main conduit between E-Tims and the collective. So there's been quite a wee bit of kind of upturn or kind of upheaval, I should say, regards the collective and the whole kind of goings on recently, mostly due to four guys from Axom actually went to a pal's hospitality box and people took the huff for some stupid reason. But so have you any latest updates on the kind of collective approach and what's happening in regards to all of that, Monty, for everyone out there?
I think the best way to sum it up without betraying anybody's confidence is that it's all gone very quiet, Desi. And I think that inevitability of factions and, you know, the very notion of what a collective is, you can't have a singular opinion. You can't have a singular set of values. Otherwise, you're just, well, that's fucking communism. That's not collectivism. And I think, I said it at the start, I think it's a fantastic idea. It's a fantastically well-intentioned group. And there's no doubting anyone's passion towards Celtic within it. But going fucking doolally because a couple of boys took a bit of hospitality at Celtic Park is just frankly ridiculous. I get the optics. The optics don't look good. You're asking for someone to, you know, maybe do without while you're seen to be leading this movement of do without, but you're taking. I get that. But I mean, come on the fuck here. It's not exactly the workers' lockout in 1922. We're trying to effect change at a football club. And there's no activity there. I did post up a thing, and I know Ralph picked up on it in our WhatsApp. It was a copy of a LinkedIn post from a professor who studies change and has spent his entire life doing it. And the notion of focusing on a singular thing instead of attacking the whole thing that you're trying to break down. And the most successful change movements are the ones that focus on one thing. And I put that up thinking it'll start a conversation. Fucking tumbleweed did. So I don't know where it's going. But the factionalism that's now there, you could have wrote a book and predicted this. You've got other snakes coming out of the woodwork now. You've got other motives starting to come into play. And the only people that win in that is a billionaire with a moustache and two goons who sit in their chairs still overpaid at Celtic Park. So sorry for the negative kickoff, Desi. But I'd love the collective to be able to get its shit together, but I don't think it's ever going to.
No, exactly. So I, as people listening, but certainly within your group, you will all know I have always cited this as a numbers game. I mean, it's a numbers game, and the numbers are stacked massively in Dermot and his friends' favour. Until you could compete with the numbers, Monty, you went through the potential buy-over of Celtic, but it's not as simple as the Rangers buy-over. We've not got a Dave King looking to dump and get money. We don't. Dermot Desmond does not need £200 million for sell and sell it, that kind of thing. It's no apples and apples. It's totally different. But Karen, I'll just ask you, and Hector, both of you, like I was at, so I'm sitting in the main stand. I'm not sure how Karen were used to. I'm in the main stand, and the other week they were shouting the Hibs game. The boys, I think, started singing, Michael, get the cup, right? And they all started booing in the main stand. People started booing the main stand. Shut up, get that the fuck. This is no the time nor place, right? Because there'd been a wee bit of kind of, because of the Stuttgart game, the boys going on the pitch and Martin O'Neill taking the huff apart, these sort of things. The optics again wasn't good. It didn't work out. The stand up if you hit the board was flat. Nobody was interested, whereas before that had very much been backed. And then I came into your chat and I came onto Twitter and I went, the Michael get the fuck. And then people went, no, we thought they were singing Schmeichel get the fuck because it had been after the game after he'd made a few mistakes. So he suddenly had different people's different perspectives. And I think, Karen, I think that's an example. Everybody seems to have different perspectives in this. There's no one clear perspective of that's right, that's wrong. Somehow it's been all splintered. I mean, so suddenly 4 guys for Axel are enjoying the game. It's like, how dare they? And people just jump on that. You know, like that squirrel that detracts everybody. And there's no any concentrated, determined argument against what's wrong. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think this is where like social media as well, helps perpetrate that, because you know what it's like. It's really toxic at times, and you've just got absolute idiots on there that don't take a minute back and think, well, why? This is what the board want. They want us to attack each other. This is their dream, their wet dream, as it were. But it's always a difficult thing, because people get so many perspectives about how to do it. Personally, I didn't like the tennis ball thing. I thought it did suck the atmosphere. It really changed it because the place was pumping. And I can certainly understand that viewpoint, but because people are so passionate about it, it just goes into overdrive. I think if you think back to Celts for Change and everything like that, it was slightly different because there was one focus, and it was just get the board out, and you had one group that started it, and then it was all that focus about we knew we had to get the board out. But nowadays, these days, because there's so much social media and everybody can just fire in, then the message can get lost very quickly. Whereas I think because you didn't have that outside influence, you were able to focus in the past. Don't know if that makes sense, but I just think that's a big factor.
Oh, no, spot on. Absolutely
Hector.
spot on.
Sorry, Val, I'm coming to you in a second. I've got something specific to ask you. But Hector, from your perspective in the stadium,
I wasn't at the game, Desi. I never went to that game. So I'm not going to just say here. I'm going to say here. Make a thing up.
Yeah. Even again, the general complaints about atmosphere and stuff.
Aye, but you've got to remember there's circa 55 to 60,000, right, at virtually every home league game, whatever, right? You've got some people who will never deviate from loyalty, Celtic loyalty, to the board. You've got some people like that. You've got other people, Celtic's their life. And what I mean by that, they've maybe no got a family, they've maybe no got other interests, and they want to go and see Celtic come hell or high water. That's their life, to go to Celtic Park, to meet some friends, have the day there. So there's that many different elements to make up a fan base. And I think Karen's right. I think the board are over the moon, because the old adage of divide and conquer, it's kind of happening to a large degree now. And there helped be certain people in certain quarters throwing in things. A lot of it's bullshit, and it's social media again. Once it gets out, it snowballs, and it causes that debate and that confusion and that fighting. But if you strip it back, see if you just strip it back, and this is a hard thing, because momentum builds in one direction and it all goes that way, rather than strip it back and strip it back. Strip it back is the board are awful. And I think the majority of fans, even those who go every week and don't really complain, probably feel the same way. They probably feel the board's rubbish. But they don't have that urge to protest, I think, as much as people who are out there. They want to make change, they're vocal about it, they're making flags and making banners. So to pull all that together into one is really tough. And additionally, when you've got an owner, not an owner, he's an owner. He is the owner, right? He owns Derby. He's the man who's that wealthy that he doesn't give a fuck. And it's unlike the old board back in the day, and they weren't there. So they were desperate to get a few quid in the end to get out of there. He's the opposite. He's the case of, how dare you criticise me? How dare you turn out outside Celtic Park and shout Desmond get the fuck? How dare you come to the AGM and challenge my son and my board's authority. So we're dealing with a very different beast. But I think things could be handled so much better if we strip it back to basics again.
Yeah.
If we just get the Green Brigade back in again, number one. See if we just get that in again. I think everything else beyond that will start to solve itself in the next few months. But the board don't want to play game with that. Brian Wilson's doing his political act. He's a politician, no surprise there. He's shaking a few hands as you do pre-election on the doorstep, kissing a few babies in the head. But it's all pish, isn't it? Because he's then get back to the board. Great, guys, I've killed a couple more weeks. Another 4 weeks to the next home game. He's ticked a few boxes. They've no intention of letting the Green Brigade back in. I suspect even the Motherwell one, they've bought some time. And for me, it's just a clusterfuck of many things. I won't be critical of those protesting because they're doing many things that I would be doing. I would have been throwing the tennis balls in, Cam, I must admit. If I'd been a bit younger, I'd been one of them, right? But we're all different. I respect others' opinion who disagree with that. And it's not a fight, it's a discussion. It's a discussion. Social media don't have a discussion, but it's a discussion. But and a lot of the guys are banned. It's their life. You know, apparently it's two guys in particular from the Green Brigade. Two guys in particular. One of the guys is the guy that stood up for the Celtic team they've got in the West Bank. He's drove that. He's drove the Gaza aid for the Celtic supporters. He's been fundamental in that. The guy, what a fucking job. This guy ticks most of the boxes and the values that I would be proud of any Celtic supporter. What this guy does. But the fact the Palestinian thing sticks in the throat of many in the Celtic board because it's football and politics don't mix, bollocks. And there's two of them. And it's people at Celtic don't want these two in particular. So rather than deal with those two, they've banned everybody. Over 200 people now can't go and see their club that have had nothing to do with any of this. And this is what sticks in my throat. This is my biggest thing, is the people like them who put money into the club, unlike the board who take money out year after year after year, dividends, bonuses, fucking 5-star hotels, a free lunch, a free dinner. These people, it's their life. And it just sticks in my throat that what they're doing to this group of supporters is horrendous. So anyway, there's my 2 minutes worth.
Yep, no, thank you very much. Thank you. So we're coming to Ralph.
Yeah.
Ralph's.
If I can add to that,
yep.
Before you ask, if I can add to that, it's not just the fact that these guys are doing this wrong or these guys are misbehaving. It's the entire concept of collective punishment that sticks in my craw. You've got 200 to 300 people that are not allowed into the game because 2 or 3 have allegedly misbehaved. And that's wrong in itself. That invalidates everything the board has said, as far as I'm concerned, about why they're doing what they're doing. So on you go, Desi.
No, thank you. No, exactly. So exactly, like we have our WhatsApp chats, and occasionally it's quite interesting because occasionally one of us will jump on against the other because somebody either questions or interprets something a little bit different, and that comes back to my original point that the message isn't crystal clear. The target isn't crystal clear. It's no definitive. It's no singular. It's still all over the place. So this is an example of this, right? And this is, Ralph, I'm going to ask you this question before I come to Monty. So Open Watch, I've asked people any questions for like Open Watch is written here. What is wrong with our fans? And I'm taking this in a positive question mode. He's not just being critical for the sake of it. What is wrong with our fans? Has COVID made us mentally ill? Should we redefine the definition of a fan and a supporter? Because that was a big conversation after the Stuttgart game with Martin O'Neill taking umbrage at that protest. So fans should come into the stadium and our supporters should come into the stadium and fans should stay away if they're not willing to devote their time to support the team. Is there an argument on both sides or is it just a case of
I've always kind of thought
that a product of its environment?
I've always thought in the ground you support the team, outside the ground you make your protest, you speak your mind about whatever you think is wrong with what's going on at that particular point. The problem we have just now is that there's so much wrong with the way the club's been run. Even down from the basic PR up to football policy, for want of a better phrase. Everything they're doing seems to be wrong. So that means that as a support, we've got several things to attack them over. And they're quite happy with that because it's kind of a scattergun effect. And they don't have to deal with any particular circumstance. Whereas for me, the way would be to pick one aspect, concentrate on that, and put pressure on them for that alone, so that when they try to deflect by saying, yeah, but we couldn't get the players we wanted, we can say, right, that's an argument for another day. Right now, we're concentrating on this. And that's our way of breaking into their community, as opposed to them splitting us apart.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me, and I totally understand and I totally back you what you're saying, but it also reminds me of the SNP argument when people get upset with the SNP for no calling out BBC or Question Time when they show bias in favour of the Labour Party, or they ignore whatever, or they downplay the SNP in any way they can. And people say, well, the SNP should call them out, but they don't get invited onto the platforms to call them out. The meetings don't happen to allow these things to happen. So Celtic control the narrative. So Brian Wilson wasn't available for that meeting, or certain people weren't available for that meeting. The last meeting, John Paul Taylor said he wasn't prepared because he got late notice. So I don't know if the respect's even there for the Celtic side, right? But let's stick to the supporter side for a wee second, Monty. It's interesting just listening to Karen talking about Celtic for change and back in that period, right? So there was one clear enemy, so to speak, and I always come back to things like this. I always remember Rocky Free, Mickey the trainer, when Rocky finds out that Mickey had been handpicking his opponents, and Rocky's like, were they paid fights? And Mickey says, no, they were just handpicked because the worst thing happened to you, you got comfortable. And so my question is, no, did the board get comfortable, but have the fans get comfortable, Monty? Because now we sit in that stand, we're no longer in the old Celtic Park. Now we're the establishment club. So does that help break the fans' movement up, because the fans are reunited? Because some fans are really, really comfortable in their nice seat.
I think, Desi, it's not just, you could widen this out to a societal thing. And there's a brilliant, I like numbers and metrics because I'm a bit boring that way. There's a brilliant metric on the price of a pint and how much it's risen over the last 10 years, set against the price of a can of beer from a supermarket. It's a great graphic. You should look it up. And ultimately, it's the notion of keeping people at home and keeping them fucking barely, outside comatose, drinking cheap stuff instead of going to a pub and collectively talking and, radicalizing and coming up with ideas. And the pub was always the hub of that. If you take Celtic and where we've got to, I think there's a couple of things. And there's just a point that I wanted to make just before I go into answering the question. And it ties in with what the three guys have said before me. We conflate the board with the executive team at Celtic. We conflate the executive team at Celtic with the football executive team at Celtic. Sack the board is completely the wrong message. It's not the board that are fucking up the day-to-day running of Celtic Football Club. It's the chief executive and his team. It's not the chief executive and his team that are fucking up and making us endure the horseshoe of death. It's the football executive. It's the manager. It's his coaches. And it's not those two constituents who are fucking up our identity and our sense of identity with the club. It's the Tories on the board. So if I can bring it all back, Desi, to are we comfortable? We have binged on fucking amazingly brilliant booze and a smorgasbord of football and delights for 2 decades. We are fat, conceited, fucking spoiled rotten as a club. And that's what's happened. We don't know the difficulties of actually being beaten domestically. I have a lovely counterbalance in my life with sport, Desi, which is the GAA. I'm very fortunate to be Irish. And my county, Armagh, is quite a small county. We've only ever won 2 All-Irelands in our history. I only really got back into the OGAA thing about 20 years ago when I met my wife. And her family were just, they live and breathe it. And Desi, it's the most amazing counterbalance to Celtic. And for years and years, you turned up in Division 3 and Division 2, getting fucking tanked by these terrible teams. But you turned up because it's your county. And we haven't had to turn up for Celtic realistically since the fucking 90s. And I think we've got a real problem now. We don't know how to be the establishment, and we certainly don't know how to organise ourselves because we're all fucking drunk on 24 cheap tins. Remember Strachan made that comment. It's a terrible analogy, but it's what I'm trying to say. We do not know how to gear ourselves up because we haven't faced this before. And what we're doing is normal human behaviour. We're turning on ourselves first. And that, for me, is the problem.
There's two things, though, right? It's not just domestic. The issue wasn't domestic at the start of the season. The issue was when we lost the Champions League qualifiers. Nothing to do with domestic football at the time. It was how year after year after year, bar exception, and last season was an exception when we almost took Bayern through to extra time. It's how we underachieve and we lose a fortune in European terms by not being prepared. But hold on, you've had give me a wee minute.
Yeah.
We've spoke about this many times before in these podcasts, umpteen times. It's the lack of preparation year after year after year. Not getting the players in that they're at. Manager A, Ange Postecoglou, Brendan Rodgers, both varieties of it, even Neil Lennon and Ronnie Dyler. It's just not having that level of we're willing to just back them and be prepared. But more so this summer just gone, we have a wealth behind us that very few clubs in world football. So I think put away domestic, because that wasn't a domestic issue at the time. That's been this season because the squad's been fucking streamlined to a horrible level. But it's the European, it's the lack of foresight, it's the lack of ambition. And people went, this has to stop. We need leaders at the club. There's no leadership at the club.
But I think, Hector, you're right, and I'm not disputing you, and I don't want to hog your time, Desi, because I know we've a conversation now. But the key thing is we are not geared for that level of ambition. Our support base is not unilaterally geared to that level of ambition. The 1 point ahead of Rangers is the fundamental problem that will always limit Celtic, and it will always limit us as a support. Because if you're really honest about it, the ones that exploded, when it really came to it, it didn't explode because we somehow didn't make the last 16 of the Champions League, Hector. And we also didn't explode because we didn't really properly plan. We fucking exploded when the whole house of cards started looking like it was falling down and we had 77 million in the bank. But the key on that is if we still set out to achieve our objectives every year, and that's the problem, our PLC objectives as defined and injected into the football operation are win the league, be successful domestically, and now you hit the problem, participate in Europe. We're not wanting to be competitive in Europe. As a fucking football entity, we've just said we're happy to get there. But they didn't ask us, would we be happy to get there? But we don't know how to react now that we're not even the underdog. We're not even a fucking challenger. We're just there.
But we're saying the same thing. All of us, sorry, but the other guys that come in, but we're saying the same thing, right? We keep saying the same thing, which is good. But it's the lack of vision, lack of a written down 3 to 5 year plan that is a basic of any organisation. That the chief executive writes it down, and then he can be in the club and the board and the executive board can be measured against it. And this is where we're all saying, these other clubs you mentioned in a previous podcast we did recently, when you mentioned some other clubs in Norway and Denmark and even
Bruges and Michelin.
They've got the execs, and there's something to measure. And with Celtic, it's the old boys club, the old, don't worry, we'll keep a point ahead of Rangers most season. But the fans have had enough of that. There's no visionaries at the club. And Desi, you'll probably come to it in a wee minute or two, I'd imagine, is the recent news where Willie Hoy's potentially talking about, just last night, wasn't it? I'll let you maybe summarise that. But I'm keen to hear others' thoughts on this rather than me waffle a lot of shit.
You're on mute again, Desi.
Sorry, yes. Can I just say for everyone listening, thanks for listening. This is the E-Tims podcast where at least 3 of the members on this call have been here for over 20 years and we're criticising the Celtic board. So just to let everyone know that, hypocrites CSC are us. So that's fine. It just struck me there. Who the fuck are we to complain about anybody?
Do we get paid? Do we get paid? Do we get bonuses? Do we get free meals?
So I just like to say, I salute the board and all who's sailing.
Tea and biscuits with Peter, anyone?
We always said no.
The only person ever went was Ralph. Remember, the only person ever went to Celtic Park representing E-Tims was Ralph, because we would never go. Right. So
and then he got the gig at the BBC.
So we're not going to go back over old ground, as Hector said. We're not, and again, anyone who wants to read a great argument against the board and their lack of vision and their stagnation, go to www.etims.net and look up Monty's article, his recent shock article that he actually produced. And there is a follow-up coming, but there's lots of comparisons with various other teams and establishments in Europe, which should put our board to shame. But we are where we are. What we want to talk about, so we all know about the board and their limitations and their issues, but we're going to skip over them and concentrate on the fan side, right? So Karen, let me just check the quotes I've got here. So Scouse Tims, my good friend Scouse Tims, when I asked for topics for tonight, he wrote, who's in the people's front of Judea and who's in the Judean people's front, right? Which I think kind of sums up. We've got the Celtic Trust, we've got the CSL, we've got the Season Tickets Alliance. It's all starting to go Liberal Democrats in the 80s for me. So Karen, is that also part of the problem? We've got these splinter groups. Which splinter group are you in at the moment, Karen? Are you? We're considering forming one. You want to join us?
Yeah, let's do it. As long as there's no tennis balls involved. No, I'm only joking. And that's my point. You know, it's just it's the factionalism and all this now, because people have got their own agendas, their own motives. They all believe that they're 100% correct, and it's from the passion. It's because I love of the club that people feel like this, and there is no right answer. There is no wrong answer. I've already mentioned about the tennis balls. I know that that'll upset people. But I'm not criticising anybody for doing it. It's just not something that I would have taken part in. But that's human nature now. It's attack. If everybody doesn't agree with me now, it's too easy. And I'm in the people Judean front.
Okay, fair enough. So Hector, you alluded to the latest twists in this tale, but we'll step back a wee bit. We're just waiting for Ralph to come back with the fridge with his latest can of Carling Black Label. But the Celtic supporters, whatever they see, whatever the L stands for, I don't, as I say, I've always said it's a numbers game. I appreciate what the Celtic Trust and Jeanette, etc., they're all trying to do, but I just think you're pushing that massive boulder up a hill and you're covered in greys. You're not going to get anywhere. It's a numbers game. Unless you can find another billionaire or a consortium from America to come in and take those shares, then you're never going to win. The next twist on that, Hector, was going to be the CSL. David Lowe was I can't remember that guy, Duncan somebody, Smiley maybe. They'd actually applied, I think, to be part of the Celtic Trust board and walked away. And now they're trying to set up their own move where they're trying to get people to buy shares over, say, a 5-year period and ultimately get to 30%. And they maybe have a longer term strategy of potentially challenging. And now we've got the latest one, as Wally Hockey saying he'd like to set up, he's like to target the 54,000 season ticket holders and get them to sign up to some sort of season ticket alliance. And for every 10,000 that sign up, he will buy £2 million worth of Celtic shares on behalf of the alliance. He does not want to run it. I only watched the segment of the conference, but I didn't watch the full thing. But they're talking about collecting the shares that the people want, as well as his ultimately maximum £10 million. But again, Hector, it's this one group over here, one group over there, one group over here, and I always remember the movie The Sum of All Fears. Alan Bates is discussing if you want to fight with America and you want to fight with Russia, you don't go to war with America and you don't go to war with Russia. You get America to fight Russia. You know what I mean? And that appeals to be how the Celtic board have played this. All the supporters groups are now contesting against each other.
It's difficult to try and reconcile it all together, I suppose, right? For most people, I think the one where I don't know enough detail about what Holly said other than the headline thing. There's a headline thing, right? But like everything else, the eye is always in the detail of these things, isn't it? So I suspect over the next week or 2 weeks, once that comes out, then you can have maybe a bigger conversation. But the headline points are 10,000 season ticket holders sign up to this, whatever it may be. I'll put £2 million into a fund for shares to be bought, and I won't be the person that's running it. I will be control of it. Blah 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 blah. Sounds great. Sounds great at a kind of headline level, but let's see what the detail is to support it. But what I would say is, I've always felt that it's the season ticket holders that hold the power. You know, we the 54,000 of us who put the money in every year, we're the one that keep the club going. And a vehicle that represents season ticket holders really probably has a lot more power than most other things, other than somebody buying Dermot Desmond out, which I don't think is going to happen tomorrow, right? I think that would be the ultimate, is somebody to buy him out. But that may take a fair bit of time, or it may never happen. He may pass it on to his son, who'll continue his current work. But the 54,000 season ticket holders, I think that's something to be explored more. Whether it's through what Willie Hawley's proposing, which I say we need more detail over the next few weeks. We don't know enough yet, other than the headline stuff. But that group coming together, even if it's 30,000 of the 54, the majority saying, we want this, we want that, we're going to work as a proper collective, we've got the power, the season ticket holders to do. I don't know what that doing something is, Desi, but I think there's something in amongst that should be explored a bit more. And I think that's the key to maybe getting some change from people who attend, who pay the club bills, who go every home game. So that's where my wee top of must would kind of be.
Yeah, I think it was Lazio. I think they were weak. Some Italian club. I think it was Lazio. 30,000 fans stayed outside the stadium.
Yep.
The fans apologised to the team. They said, "I'm sorry, but it has to be done." And fair play to them. I know, like that Stuttgart game, Joe Hart. In fairness, the fans feel that's the only way they can actually get their voice heard. That's what they've got today. Whereby you just knew Rory on TNT Sports was dying for him to take the bait. Joe Hart defended the fans and said, if that's how they feel, I'm not going to ever go to them, kind of thing. But I just don't understand how. Again, numbers game, but as you say, season ticket holders, right? So there's one final ploy, one final card that the season tickets can play, Ralph, and that season ticket holders can play, and that is don't renew your season ticket when the deadline comes, right? When I took over, right, Ralph, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of emotional blackmail. My uncle died, right? I don't know if I've told you this story. My uncle died, and I was at my uncle's funeral, and my cousin's husband comes over, and he huckles down. He's like, "Hey, big man, get something to ask. Your auntie's got something to ask you." My uncle's widow, your auntie's. I was like, "What's that?" I thought he was going to ask me to say a few words or something. I'm like, "What's that?" He went, "Well, your Uncle Pat season book's there. Your Uncle Pat had that season book for 32 years, and he got it off your granddad, who had it for 50 years. Do you want it?" And I said, "Well, I can't fucking no take it, can I?" I mean, it's been in my family for 8 years, and I must have had it for about 20 now, whatever it is. So there's tens of thousands of examples of my story in that Celtic stadium. And that's what the Celtic board are banking on. That I'm not going to sit in my hands and no sign that season book renewal in case I suddenly go back 3 weeks later after the boycott and they say, "Your seat's away." So, Ralph, what do you do there?
There's always going to be the kind of emotional attachment, and that's what they're banking on. There's no getting away from that. But what I don't think we're kind of stressing enough is that we now have different ways to watch a game. As you know, I was going up week in, week out, sometimes 3 times a week. But as you get older and it gets a wee bit more expensive, and the time just isn't there anymore for me to go up at 5 in the morning and come back here at midnight. Certainly not as much as it used to be. So if the one thing I was afraid of when I was doing that all the time was sitting down, watching a game on the telly, and then getting up and getting my dinner instead of getting back in the motor in Glasgow or Aberdeen or Dundee or whatever and coming all the way back down. Because I knew the first time I'd done it, I'd do it again, then it would kind of become a habit. It would be easier. And they've forgotten that. They've forgotten that we can watch it on the telly, we can listen to it on the radio. We have several different ways now of getting what you might call a fix. And once we start to, it's tough for guys like you because you're close to the ground, and losing your book is a risk because there will be other people that will take it. But once they realise a lot, especially the people that come over from Ireland, the people that come up from down here, we used to see other buses every day on the way up. Now I think there's one in Coventry that travels all the time, Northampton travel all the time, and there's maybe a couple in Manchester. After that, you're left with a Preston Emerald. I don't even think there's one in Carlisle anymore. The travelling support down here has kind of went away. It'll not be long before the Irish supports, the next generation that comes through, they want to be with their pals instead of going with their dad to the football. We've noticed that it'll happen in Ireland, and we need to make the board realise that the huge chunk of the support that travels isn't always going to be there. That emotional attachment gets overtaken by financial attachment, by just a time attachment. For us, remember, it was always an all-day. A night match, sometimes you're not getting home till 4 or 5, and that's in England, never mind Ireland.
But
We do have.
I was going to say there's a great piece to back that up this week, and that was the impact of the Celtic fans in Stuttgart. I mean, like, they showed you the big wall of fans, and the team were over the moon with them, and everybody was having a great time. And I was enjoying. I think it was the Paul McStay bus. They kept posting up only 39 hours to go, and I mean, like, you kind of that commitment and that kind of like the fact that gets taken for granted is this terrible. Monty, I think you were going to come in when I was talking about the season book emotional blackmail option.
There's two things, and I think Ralph touched upon something profoundly important for the future of the club and for the future of us as a support base. We've never properly, as a club, tapped into that diaspora, if you want to call it that, even though it's not a national identity, but you know what I mean? The Celtic fan base all over the world. You hear people, all the stories from America, Australia, everywhere else. Don't do it right. So there's a huge opportunity. But the generational thing that Ralph talks about as well, the buses are still pretty packed from here, but not as packed as before, Ralph. And the demographic changes, and as the age group changes as well, we've come a long way from the old night boats and shit going from Larne to Stranraer. But there's a really simple piece inside the numbers, Desi. I have another little thing that we kicked the tires on. We did it just for a bit of a laugh, and then it grew a bit of legs about 3 or 4 months ago. And I might just throw it onto the site as well, Desi. Publish and be damned.
Come on, there's
a very, very easy way that isn't financially onerous to take Celtic into fan ownership, and it starts with the season ticket base. So let me posit a question to, I think, the three of you, yourself, Karen, and Hector, probably have books at Celtic Park. I know that Karen, I don't know. I know the two lads do. Maybe you do yourself. But let me ask you a question actually to the four of you. Because this ties in with what the guys are doing in CSL. It also ties in with what hockey's now doing. So everything's going into a trust. Everything is going into trust, and there's this notion of philanthropy. If you were told that for an extra £10 per month on your season book, the end of each season, you would be given a shareholding in Celtic, a tiny small portion of a shareholding in Celtic, and you take 56,000 people and you multiply it by £120, would you do it? To own a piece of Celtic every year?
I mean, I'm a shareholder already. So,
for additional shares, Karen.
yeah, boo. Listen, I'm a shareholder.
Karen.
I'm a shareholder so that I can go and vote Brian Wilson off the board every single year.
Because I'm going to come on. By the way, I'm going to come on to Wilson in a second because I think he's playing a blinder, but not in the way that not in a positive way.
Yeah.
Would you pay? Would you guys as season ticket holders, 56,000 of you, pay an extra £120 a year to, at the end of every year, be guaranteed that you would own additional shareholding in Celtic?
Okay, I used to be a season ticket holder for the men's team. I am for the women's team now. I would do it, yeah.
And it would be right across the board. Sorry, Karen, so it's more than 56,000. It's the men and the women's. So there's probably 60,000 or 66,000 season tickets in it. Hector, would you pay an extra tenner a month to own a piece of Celtic every year?
Yeah, that probably makes sense. Yeah.
Right, Desi, would you? Tenner a month.
I'm just looking up here. I'm already giving them £1,000 a year. I'm just looking up. There's 951,000 shares in existence at the moment.
Tenner a month.
How long before you catch up?
Not that long, but the reason why I'm pointing this out is as follows, and Ralph, I assume you're on board with this. To finance the purchase of Celtic outright would require an interest payment coverage of around £6 million a year. That's the purchase of Celtic Football Club outright. And with the player trading model and the current profitability of the football club, you could have Celtic Football Club back in 100% fan ownership within 10 years. Seriously. Without doing anything else. Without doing any fucking thing else other than that one move. And I'll say, do you know what? I'm going to put it up on the side. I'll maybe bait the rest of that weird wine and I'll put it up.
Wait a minute, but hold on. But I understand what you're saying. But there's also got to be a seller of shares.
But now you move on to the next stage of. So the current guy with the moustache owns 34% of the club. You need 51% of the club to vote to take an offer. 50% of the club plus one vote. So if you now look at what David Lowe and Duncan Smillie are doing, if you look at what Willie Hawkey's doing, back all this up, because this brings us all back to the support thing. These are people now, what's the old cliche? Change happens really slow and then all at once. We've just started the really slow bit. Somebody, somewhere, is going to pull out a check at the appropriate point and get 50% plus one, which can then force a takeover and force Dermot Desmond to sell his shares. He may even underwrite the fucking gig. Who knows? These guys are after all psychos. But my point is this. This can be done, and it's not difficult. And it might sound like an awful lot of money, but 200 million in a world where there's really not a lot of investment anymore happening in anything real wouldn't be that hard to get if you really knew what the fuck you were doing. Now, could have fuck. But the model stacks up. It's flawed, but it works. So why not? Why would we not want Celtic in full fan ownership? And where the collective comes in, where CSL comes in, and Willie Hawkey comes in, and back to our good friend Wilson. And I'll shut up now because I'm rambling a bit. Wilson's playing a blinder right now. Because if he gets us the Ibrox Cup match, and then he plays the populist card, because he's gone soon. I can't understand why these people aren't already talking about this thing openly. Why aren't they talking about giving Celtic back to the fans the way first? I don't get it.
Is that maybe what the existing custodians are scared of? Is that what Desmond's afraid of? And that if we all get our act together, it's actually quite easy to get them out, as long as we kind of focus in the right direction all at the same time. Is that why?
And how do you get your act together?
Divide us?
The trust should have been that vehicle, but the trust had its time. The collective could have been the vehicle, the angry vehicle. It seems to have shot its fucking bolt far too early. CSL looks like a bunch of guys who just want a seat in the board. Willie Hawkey. Let's bring it to Willie Hawkey then. What's Willie Hawkey really doing? Honestly, that's an open question.
No. I said earlier, in my opinion, until we get more detail other than some sound bites last night, we need to see the detail first. I've probably got my own personal opinion. All of us, right? He's no Lord Hoy for nothing. Those of us in Glasgow, maybe from the south side of Glasgow, some may say Tory Glen, right?
Yes.
Maybe know more about Willie Hoy and others in terms of business and whatever. There's no doubt he's a massive Celtic. Let's cut to the chase with him. There's no doubt he is a Celtic fan, a massive Celtic number one, right? So he's not a fly by night thing, but we need to know the detail. There's no detail yet before MD can say good, bad, and different. We'll have our personal opinions. Some of it might be negative without seeing the detail, but let's see it first before jumping on a side and saying it's the greatest idea ever. Oh, it's a pile of shite to benefit Willie Hoy, right?
That's the key. Who does it benefit? You know the old Cui Bono? Who benefits from that? Who benefits from Willie being on TalkSport or Talk Radio?
Well, that goes back to, you know, when Fergus McCann first said, I was coming back for a game. I was coming down the motorway. McCann came on Radio Clyde. It was before we got to Bothwell or whatever. And he says, if I was to make it so that you could buy the shares and take it over and get rid of this board, would you put into it? Would you, as a supporter, contribute? And he had, you know, it seemed simple, really. But that's all he done. He just says, right, you guys buy it. I'll put my head on the parapet. I'll put some of my own money in, and we'll get rid of these idiots. And that was it.
It happened.
So why are we not doing that now?
You can be a reluctant seller, but if a majority of the shareholding votes to approve a motion, you got to fall in line. The problem is you need to find not just 30, or it's not 50% plus one. It would be 50% plus one of the existing shareholding, but there's 20% of that missing. So this is the game, and it's a long game, and change happens slowly and then all at once. But I think we're in the slowly bit now. Change is coming, lads. I think people, and it won't be, it just sounds really cynical, and it's not how I'm wired, but it's just the way of the world. The revolution doesn't start with a revolutionary in the street. When rich people decide that things need to change. That's the fucking reality of history. Sorry, I'm really cynical.
When there's blood in the street, buy property. Right, so I am just looking here. The Celtic share price has doubled in the last 4 years, right?
Yeah.
So you are looking to so this is why I'm saying we are no comparable at the moment with our Rangers, because they had a man open to selling these shares quickly as possible. Dave King, Dermot Desmond doesn't want to get rid of his shares, so then you have to target the other 63% of shares. So this to quickly jump back, Monty. The CSL, the Celtic Trust, the Supporters Alliance, again, they all seem to have different targets or objectives. They've not got one objective, i.e., like one wants to put a fan on the board, the other one wants the representation, very open-ended, not that way. Celtic Trust wanted to ensure that fans knew that the fan shares were collected together, but visible, because a lot of fans' shares had went missing, so they were looking to try and help people. So bring it back to the Willie Hockey thing. Also comes back to something that we discussed at the very start of the collective. And Karen, seeing as you were the part of that chat, we'll see what your thoughts on is. And my initial, and complaint is not the right word, but my initial concern about the collective is a collective's sounds perfect, right? It sounds wonderful, but a collective Soviet fucking Russia, it's just too big and it's too hard to move, and it doesn't work, because you always need a leader. You always need a person that's like the SNP needed an Alex Salmon to get to that independence thing. You can't just do it with a lot of people having goodwill. You need to have that bastard at the front who's willing to make that call and be that person who's willing to take the flat. And I'm not saying Willie Hockey is the person, Hector. I've not got any skin in this game, but you need somebody who can represent like a Willie Hockey. I mean, like it needs to be a focal point who could Fergus McCann's a perfect example. That wee guy, if you said at the very start, the ridicule that wee guy got, but he was the guy to see that through. That guy, that vision, and he had that steel determination, Karen. And I don't see that at all at this point. And I think that's also part of the problem. There's no one person delivering the message. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Stating the facts, making the argument. It's very much people shouting into the wind because it's too much noise.
Hmm. Yeah, totally agree. But there doesn't seem to be anybody but that you know that's. But we'll go back to the Celts for Change thing. You know, you had your few bodies out there. You had your Brian Dempsey. You had hockey as well. You had, and then Fergus came, and he was the man because at least he came out and he said, "This is what I'm going to do." But there's no one person at this moment in time that we can all unite around.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Rod
I
Stewart.
think that's partly to do with social media. Oh, Jesus Christ. I think the problem is social media.
Rod Stewart.
In that sense.
Stuart, a very good friend of Willie Hawkins, by the way.
Indeed.
Very good friend.
Right, I'm trying to pretend you've not said that.
Sorry.
Hey, with social media, if somebody does put their head above the parapet, then you're going to get people sniping at them. You won't get that kind of unity that you had back then, where it was entirely down to maybe a TV appearance, a radio interview, whatever. Now everybody can pull everybody else up with no evidence, with no grounds, no nothing, so that you'll maybe get 15 minutes of he's the right guy, and then somebody else will come along and he'll be the right guy. And the whole thing just keeps spinning around and doesn't centralise into a kind of focal point.
That's why I think for us as supporters and a support base, I can't see anything that any of them are offering at the minute in these groups to get together that I would buy into. But I'd buy into fan ownership. And I mean, literally, I'd buy into fan ownership. I would put money into it, even though I'm not a season ticket. Fan ownership should be the guiding light. It should be the North Star for the entire project. But what I do think will happen, Ralph.
Hearts.
Yeah, it's a club.
It's completely changed.
He only owns 10%, Tony Bloom. He's not
but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Desi. It's the notion of a club. It's the notion of a club. You're part of it. You've got a voice. You own part of it. You're vested, quite literally fucking vested when it comes to shares. But what'll happen is, out of the blue, and suddenly, someone will turn up with money. Either a fund.
What about?
And this is where they'll play the fear card then. Be careful. You know, you got to be careful. Better the devil you know. 20 years of unparalleled success, unprecedented, blah, blah, fucking blah. To pay an over fucking paid lawyer 850 grand a fucking year to not talk. Jesus Christ. So for us as a support base, you can only hope for a figurehead. But you know what? Fuck the figurehead. Fan ownership is the only thing that I think would unify everybody.
Yeah,
and if you put a model in that's easy, it'll work.
Monty, how do you get that kicked off? You know, surely you need somebody to say, right, okay, I'm going to lead us onto that path. Who's going to do that?
But I think it'll come from within money, Karen. And what I mean by money is they won't be known to us. You're probably too young to remember the Jim Kerr press conference for Canvas Lang. You can remember that? We were going to move to Canvas Lang and Jim Kerr's consortium.
Yeah.
It could be something like that where they'll get a figurehead. But I mean, put it this way.
I think I'll have to go and revisit this because I'm sitting in Simple Minds book right in front of me here, Frank. I really have to check that you've got that information correct there, Monty. Finest.
But that, I think that, sorry, just around now because I've talked too much, but you get a figurehead on a football side. The business person should be completely detached from Celtic Football Club, as in the person to execute the plan. Mm-hmm. And the person to put the plan together to get the money should be driven by the fact that whoever puts the money in will bring a return. The cooperative bank are the closest thing in moral financial terms to anything that we would relate to as Celtic fans. Mm-hmm. They have divested from anything Israeli. They have literally stated their fucking position on it. They actually already underwrite Celtic. They already provide us with loans. And I think someone with a bit of charisma, financial nous, and possibly with Henrik Larsson by his side, go into the cooperative
you
bank.
You finished that speech there by saying, I have no interest in that particular direction myself, But if my colleagues on the podcast were to
Once
feel
you put me
that I
forward for it, it would be my duty, and I could not say no.
Well,
It could
Celtic
work.
have still
It's not pie in the sky. It can work.
Celtic
I
have
wouldn't
still
put you. I
announced.
wouldn't put you forward, Monty, because no cunt can get a word in when you
Aye,
talk.
Celtic-
I wouldn't put you in.
Here, I learned it.
Celtic-
I learned it from Brian Wilson. It's the only fucking way to do business.
Celtic have still to announce who the head of business relations, business operations is. Remember, we're still waiting that announcement. But Monty, the only caveat I would say is, right, 2 words: Jim Radcliffe. Somebody coming in with enough money to get operational control. I mean, that's so your Tony Blooms, you could be looking at Jim Radcliffe. I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but
You
there
could.
is that perspective of, right, okay, we're just going to come in and we're going to increase costs and we're going to streamline jobs, etc., etc. Right,
Is that no,
Hector?
is that
What we
no,
could
is that no
do-
Willie Hoy? Is that no Willie Hoy's? Sorry, Ralph. Is that no I'm guessing detail, right? But is that no possibly what Hoy's kind of getting at?
I think
Right?
it might be.
He's kind of
But-
very again caveat Desi, very very high level, right?
No.
But he's saying, look, season ticket holders, us 54,000, right? If you sign up to it, for every 10,000, there's £2 million. Ideally, will it happen? Don't know. There'll be a £10 million pot put in a fund to purchase shares for this supporters vehicle, fan trust, whatever you want to fucking call it, right? I suspect common sense is tugging away at me. It doesn't happen very often. If there is 10 million, probably won't. I don't see him getting all 50 odd thousand, but say it's 30,000, say there's £6 million there, right? Then he says, as Monty says, well, actually, I've got some smart people here, far smarter than me in the business world, in the share world, the finance world, the fund management world, who'll create a proper Celtic fund. And if you pitch in £10 a month each and there's 30,000 of you, maybe that's what Willie Hoy, because he's already said he's got a figurehead to announce pretty soon. Maybe that's his thinking. Maybe to be confirmed that's his thinking.
Possibly. If you go right, say you didn't get the magical 50,000 signed up, and again, we don't know what sign up means, right? So
No.
just say it's this pledge in your season ticket holder approval, right? That's all it is. You just signed in your email address and you're on the list, your approval. 50,000, that equates to £10 million. £10 million would buy you equivalent of 5% of Celtic shares. That's it. You're up against 60% at the moment with Dermot's consortium. So you need to try and break that consortium somehow. You know what I mean? See this talk about if we get 30%, we can be a nuisance and we can keep calling EGMs. You've already seen the contempt Celtic scope for AGM. They don't give a fuck. I mean,
So what's to stop
go
Willie
on
Hoy,
and go
right?
on.
You know the guys with money, the moving vehicles, with other people with similar money, wealth off the radar, as they say in this part of the world, right? Who's to say that Willie Hoy and others of his ilk, who are really, really wealthy Celtic supporters around the globe, who's to say there's no a dozen of them wanting to chip in 10 million each into this?
Of course. No,
That's the bit we don't. That's the bit we don't. That's the bit we don't know.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
What makes a perfect point. Like if you could get somebody to go into the co-op bank and say, here's my 12 guarantors. We are willing to back £10 million each or whatever for you to pledge us to buy a stake in this club and provide us with working capital to make the case to the season ticket holders. And then somebody stands in the car park and goes, my name is Monty C. Burns. I'm willing to put in £100 million to make your Celtic better. Here's the proof. Let's go. This basically Fergus McCann too, as Monty says. The board can't control that. The board are fucked at that point.
Yeah.
At this point, we are just we're knocking on the door with sponges because we're not having any impact. It needs to be big enough to have an impact to actually smash the door.
No, I was thinking about, you were talking, sorry, Monty, you were talking about, I think it's Desi said there's maybe circa 15 to 20% of the shareholding that's missing. And for a number of reasons, people pass away and others forget they've got shares and blah, blah, blah. I actually bought shares years ago through Hargreaves Lansdowne. I'm wondering, and I've never been able to locate it, I might
You're
be the
lazy
third
bastard.
I might be the third or fourth biggest shareholder at the club.
Back in your contracting days, maybe. You're not
He's
a
good.
contractor
Hector
anymore,
as well.
back in your contract.
Hector's just revealed himself as
Remember?
Yeah.
Is it tax friendly? That would do me. Right.
He's just revealed himself as Satoshi Nakamoto with his fucking Bitcoin wallet. He's worth billions. Good man, Hector.
Die Hard 5 siege at Lennoxtown. They're just in for the bonds. They're just in for the selling bonds. Right. No, right. But this before, right. So I think that's a good example of how big a challenge it is. But again, we've already seen an example of that challenge being met and succeeded with Fergus McCann, and then the fans had the chance to buy in, etc. But Ralph, I just want to quickly, before we forget, because we had a chat about this today, and we were talking about, again, messages and communication and engagement. And one of the things recently, Brian Wilson is, Hector says, Brian Wilson's been playing the fucking master politician card by appearing in the media to be appealing to everyone for unity and building bridges, whereas in reality he's been doing fuck all in actual truth. He's just been planning meetings, cancelling meetings, and when he does have meetings, Ralph, part of the example, which I think is terrible, is this. He was asked, who was it that banned fan media from attending press conferences? And the interim chairman representing Celtic at that meeting said, I don't know who banned fan media. And everyone else representing Celtic at that meeting said, we don't know who banned fan media. So that's the level of circling the wagons we're afraid of.
I'm not sure if that's been going on for a while, because at one time they used to do the fans forums and there would be people for every website, etc. And I went up to one of them, and somebody asked Lowell a question about something. It might have been me, about, I think it was Neil McCann was told at Dunfermline, and he'd said something about Celtic, and I says to Law, I says, well, why are you not pulling him up for bringing the game into disrepute? He manages another. And he turned round to somebody else and said, why haven't we done that? And the guy hadn't got an answer. So that was the end of the discussion. He says, right, we'll look into that, and moved on. That's a kind of politician's way of doing stuff. Remember when David Cameron used to say no more questions and walk away before anybody could ask him?
That's what I'm saying. But this is the fans media, which everyone thought was such a good thing to actually get instigated. Remember, they were all shaking hands with Brendan. I mean, that in a good way. It was lovely bringing everybody in. Same with the women's team. They brought everybody in, and then now they've just cut it off. And people are just guessing at the reasons why. And apparently the guess is some people were saying negative things about Celtic in their reports.
I don't think it's going to be that. It's just quite simple. They don't want to face us. They don't want to talk to us, because if we ask an awkward question, they haven't got the people there now that had the skill of dealing with the way that Lowell used to do it, and maybe one or two others. They would experience. Nicholson would fall apart if you asked him a direct question.
Just as a parallel to this, do any of you have experience as customers or know of a business turning over between 100 and 150 million where customers demanded to meet the CEO and the CEO bent over and said, absolutely, when do you want to meet me?
Exactly.
You got to defeat these people, you have to understand how they think. And we're just customers. So how we beat them is we remind them that we're actually fans, and we're shareholders, we're supporters, we're fans, and without us, they don't have jobs. And the North Star for anybody wanting to affect change here has to be fan ownership. If anyone offers you anything less than that, they're just another fucking charlatan. Unless Celtic comes back into fan ownership, you're just swapping Desmond out for another guy with a better moustache. There's no point.
What do you mean?
That's the key.
What do you mean comes back into fan ownership? Because it's never been in fan ownership.
Well, post-Fergus McCann, literally post-Fergus McCann it was. He offered it all up. It just happened that there were more wealthy fans who dipped in. And another functional model of fan ownership is every single shareholder, and you can own a fucking gazillion shares or you can own one. You've got one vote. That's the fundamental key.
We must be the only club that's got a proper billionaire owner, and he has the owner who's a miserable cunt.
He hasn't put a penny in. He's not put a penny in.
He's not put anything in. We've got a billionaire. And by the way, But no, he bought shares. He bought share issues.
Well,
He
bought shares.
did he not
He
underwrite
get
the
lots
first
of
issue?
dividends. He
I
gets
think
lots
he
of
might have
dividends.
underwrote the first issue, but
But
not
that's
actually
But
put
Stanley,
money in.
10 million.
But underwriting, as you know, Ralph, underwriting's just, well, if anybody else doesn't take I'll buy the rest.
Yeah.
Means nothing. Means
Yeah.
nothing. So all he did was buy. He bought. He didn't actually dip into his pocket and say, lads, in a bit of a tight bind, there's 5 million on me. Don't worry about it. I'm happy with the fucking posh sheet. Never done anything. He will get a return. His ego demands a return on every single investment that he's ever made in his life. There's books about the guy, actually. You should read about him. He's a fascinating character. But this is just another vehicle for, I guess, what? Prestige, access. You look at John Reed, you look at the airport, all that stuff.
The Home Office securities contracts are
There you go.
really
That's it.
worthwhile.
Everything.
I'm conscious of time and everything else, but the bit that I'm really and genuinely struggling with, right? And putting Desmond, and it's all about, we know it's all about Desmond, right? Everybody knows that it's him, right? But we've also got to talk about the chief executive, the invisible man that's getting circa almost £1 million a year, excluding bonuses, who actually now, other than you get the TV camera shown occasionally in the kind of director's box, he's not involved in any conversations with any supporters group. It's Brian Wilson, the interim chairman, who's doing the chief exec's job by having the communication channels open, albeit what you think is a different matter. He's not doing any updates with the media in general, even with Celtic media. There's no updates he's putting on the club web. There's nothing. They've got invisible. Somebody's told him, keep away.
It feels like that guy handed in his notice or has been told he's on notice and he's got 6 months left of his gig. That's what it feels like.
And they've not
But the
told us
thing
yet.
is, if we fracture more, he'll survive. Think of that. That fucking clown will be in the seat next season if we further fracture. It's fucking bizarre. But feels to me like he's on his way out. Feels to me like he's on his way out.
Is it like, I appreciate what you're saying, Hector. Exactly. Why is Brian Wilson having to stand in for all of these occasions? But how often do you actually see a chief executive of a football team in any aspect? You know what I mean? Realistically, it's only extreme circumstances like Jim Radcliffe. Any other team, you couldn't say he's in charge of Arsenal. You couldn't say he's in charge of Liverpool.
If we were an Arsenal fan, we'd be the Arsenal website, the Arsenal TV channels. We'd be Arsenal focused. I can't answer the question for any other club other than Celtic. And the only time you tend to see a chief exec, usually if there's a crisis, a football crisis or something in the business, it's a crisis. This guy's completely disappeared.
He's fucking ill.
Consistently like that. Yeah. He's never
more so. No, but he's actually not even doing. But see the stuff that Wilson's now doing. That's an
exactly. I'm not arguing with you because we both know it's a fucking disgrace. But it also highlights the games that Wilson's playing as a master politician of 40 years being a politician. He knows how to get in front of a story. He knows how to own the story. He knows how to lead the narrative.
I think he said to Desmond, Desi. I think he said to Desmond said to him, Brian, fuck's sake, help us out here. Can you just manage the sinking ship for a few months and do this? Because you are the politician. Michael's fucking useless, but I can't sack him because if I sack him right now, they can't think they've won.
Perfect, right? Perfect.
So let me round out. Let me round out because I've the whole thing. Sorry, let me round out one little piece. I'll give you a little bit of what I think if I'm reading the tea leaves right on Brian Wilson. 76 years of age, probably his last term on the board. All they're interested in is their footnotes and their legacy. And if I'm Wilson and I'm a genuine Celtic fan, I want my legacy to be a positive one. But I can't be associated with Nicholson getting a bullet, at the end of the season. So I play my cards now. Do the politicians thing. Tell you all about it. I get the Ibrox. We turn them over. And after Ibrox, I let the Green Brigade back. And now we're all together. We're all unified. Isn't it fucking great? Let's go and do this. And Wilson can walk away and go, hey, you asked me to pull all the clans back together. Didn't I do it? That's his legacy. If he doesn't do that, his legacy is Labour/Tory, doesn't matter what he was, just a politician, another one that took us for a ride. I think Wilson's planning the former. He needs a big story to leave with. That's what my gut would tell me he's at.
Brian Wilson's legacy will always be the guy who asked Hector to take his picture in Madrid. That will always be Brian Wilson's legacy. You know what I mean? And it still curses the fact that Hector cut his legs off. He could never get the profile right. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm wary of time, but I think the fact that that conversation went round the houses without going anywhere realistically, and I apologise to anyone listening thinking, what the fuck was that? I think that kind of encapsulates, so I'll start with Karen. I think that encapsulates the whole mess we're in from a corporate fans engagement board model, whatever we want to phrase it. There's so many fucking horrors that are still ongoing. Karen, are you confident that 2026 will see us a resolution to this, let alone this season? I'm getting it to the year end. Do we think we'll see a resolution before the year end?
I honestly don't. I think that they're just going to keep playing us and having us play, fighting amongst ourselves, and they'll be quite happy with that. I can't see it, unless something comes out like Monty's suggestion, that somebody pulls together, but I can't see it.
Yep, no, I think I'd agree with you, to be honest. I don't. So unless, Hector, what would you? Are you looking at radical change come this summer? The season finishes and we get a new chief executive announced in the shower. What do you think?
I think there will be change. I think, and for a number of reasons, I think some of the people at the club have also had enough. Might sound daft saying that. I think the criticism, the pressure put on them, they're still humans, right? And they've probably got family and friends round about Glasgow, and they'll be getting all sorts of, I'd imagine, verbals. That's the real world we live in, right? So I suspect that even though they should be sacked, some of them will probably walk with a nice wee handshake as well. So I think there will be change. So we've got an interim manager, an interim chairman, invisible stroke silent chief exec. So I think there's 3 positions that have to get done. The non-execs need to refresh, right? Tom Allison, these guys will have to go. I think the finance guy will stay. He's just doing as he's told. He's the accountant. He'll stay.
Make money.
No, but he's not the power, right? He'll stay there. He does as he's told, but it's not really him. He's not the chief exec. Desmond will still be Desmond. So there'll be change, but radical, don't see it.
Will it not just be more yes men that they bring in?
Yes.
But here's the thing, Karen. Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing, and this is where it all comes from, my opinion. If Jens Bertolascu is appointed the manager, right?
How are you pronouncing that again? In an accent?
Jens Bertolascu. And
Italian German guy.
When he's appointed the manager, either at the end of the season or if things don't go so well before the end of the season, and he transforms Celtic over the summer and plays us playing the football we're seeing, a Motherwell team with a smidgen of your budget, things suddenly start to feel a lot better. It's amazing what success in the pitch does to people, right? So that's all I'm saying.
Okay, could be interesting. Ralph, I don't know if that's your stomach or it's one of the dogs rumbling there.
It's one of the dogs.
So, Ralph, a quick question for you. You're your marketing kind of genius. So what would you recommend?
Genius.
We've kind of touched on this. No, but we've talked about this a few times. What would you recommend then to the current fans group? Say the Celtic Collective, what could they do between now and the end of the season to actually try and make an impact that's recognised? Because I don't think anything's getting recognised at the moment.
I think they need to work out what they actually want. That's the first thing. And then they need to implement a way of getting what they want and garnering support for it. It's basics. Just get down to basics, sit down, agree on something, and work towards it. I think they've just got there listening to Hector. Wait now, listening to Hector there. We've got an interim manager, we've got an interim chairman, we've got a non-existent CEO, and we've got an absentee landlord. I think that maybe Desmond's actually had enough And he just says to everybody, look, keep it going till I can find somebody that wants to take this over. And he's even put his son in to keep an eye on things and report back to him. I think change is coming. I think change will happen this summer. And I don't think Desmond will be there because I'm looking on the outside, I just think he's fed up with it now. I really think he's fed up. He's phoned his pal up to run the team. He's got somebody else in, sitting in Lowell's chair. Lowell, you'll notice, disappeared over the horizon. He can't even be asked with anymore.
I'll
that
tell
guy was
you.
there for 20 odd years.
I'll tell you why I don't think Dermot Desmond will leave at any point unless he actually gets pushed, so to speak, and that is the fact that you've got a Labour government in power and Brian Wilson might even step down, but currently he's got a connection. Brian Wilson's well connected into a Blair-right government, Labour government, and there's lots of contracts to be had, and that's how we had John Reid, and that's how we had Lord Parkhead on the board. The sort of David contracts. That's why Dermot Desmond's company supply all the security in airports in the UK. I mean, it's all that's the Celtic's just a conduit to get to where he wants to be. And while that Labour government's there, Brian Wilson helps get him into that conversation. He was happy to sit with David Cameron for breakfast, and he'll be happy to sit with Keir Starmer for breakfast. So I can't see him going anywhere.
Feeling quite ill at the moment.
So we'll leave it to Monty. Monty's not said much tonight, so we'll leave it to Monty to finish. So Monty, a year from now, where are we?
A year from now, we'll be at the end of the change.
In fact, I apologise. What's your timeline then for how you see things playing out? I'll give you as long as you want, but how do you see things playing out up until 2030? I'll give you 4.5 years or 3.5 years.
Desmond will be gone in 18 months. I think we're at the start of the change, coming slowly and then all at once. I think we'll be bought by either an American or a Middle Eastern investment vehicle. And I think we'll be bought at the same time as there's some genuine noises around change in football. Well, because it's a completely unrealised asset.
My apologies, Monty. I did mean to mention to you earlier on, apologies folks for interrupting, the Prem Fix suggestion. The Premier League are now in talks with Netflix to actually set up their own TV company and own their own rights. Yeah. Anybody remember Satanta? But that's the way football. Ralph touched on it. There's other ways of watching football.
ITV too. Yeah. So I think 18 months. I don't share Ralph and Hector's enthusiasm for sweeping change before the start of the new season. We'll obviously have a new manager. We'll obviously have a new chairman. I just can't check a feeling that Nicholson's going to write it out. Just can't. So 18 months, I think, big change, Desi. But fan ownership can be the only vehicle. Anything else is just moving chairs around on a very wobbly ship.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so there we are, folks. That was an hour or so talking a whole lot with not much in conclusion of a concrete example or kind of method. Fingers crossed, all works out. The collective, I think, have got great ideas and they've got great endeavours. They just can't seem to get their plans executed. Public perception has totally been swinging back and forth. The CASL, that's a long-term plan. They're looking at a 5-year deal, so that's looking long-term down the road. And then Wally Hockey, as Hector said, we're waiting on the details, but you're still looking at an initial 5% max of Celtic shares and having to find somebody to sell you them. So it's still up in the air. We'll see where we are, end of the season, then end of the year, and Monty's touched on 18 months down the road. So interesting. Monty used to always say, interesting. We live in interesting times. So we'll see how that all works out. All right. So it's just left for me to say thank you, folks, for listening. Please like and subscribe in all the normal places where the pod's available. Please go to www.etims.net where you'll see Ralph's diary and also Monty's constant articles which he has been writing recently. So if you want any more hard facts on the finances and the projections Monty's been putting up a few articles on those, so please enjoy those and leave the comments there. And it's just left for me to say thanks very much to everyone tonight. Thank you, Ralph.
Cheers, thanks.
Thank you, Hector. James Bertalasco,
Cheers,
the new
everyone.
manager in May. Thank you, Karen. Share owner, glass, we should say.
Thanks very much. Have a good one.
Hector, you go and look at your share certificates now. They might be up in the loft. They might be up in the loft in a nice old wooden frame, like the old days. You know what I mean?
I'll sell mine to Willie Hoy for 10 million if he fancies that.
I'll give him actually, well, Karen lives quite close, and I actually passed by his house twice. I passed by the White House twice a night on the White East Go riding back, so I'm going back up tomorrow. I can pop in and let him know if you want. You know what I mean?
Magic. Sounds
I'll
good.
give him a shout. And then finally to Monty C. Burns, Monty Capitalist Pig Burns. Thank you very much, Monty, for that drill down. We'll see how it
Thanks,
comes.
Jay. Thanks for not falling asleep. Appreciate it.
Okay. Excellent, folks. My name's Desi. Good night. Right, there we go. 2 hours, 44 minutes talking about Celtic and the hell that is Celtic. Right, folks, I'll go and cut that up. I'll put the football one out tonight, and then I'll put the finance one out on Monday. I'll schedule it for Monday or Tuesday. All right?
All right.
Here,
Have a good weekend,
here, let me know when you're putting that up, Paul, and I'll put that fan ownership model article up at the same time.
I'll schedule it even for Tuesday, because Monday will be post the Rangers game, and then Tuesday's in between the Rangers and Aberdeen game. All right, so
I'll put that up on the site, and then you can let it go whenever it suits.
Okay, perfect.
All right, let's take it easy. Enjoy Sunday.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Big Tams of the Gallowgate are proud to sponsor the E-Tims podcast for season 25-26. This is an appeal. Have you seen Michael? Michael is older than he looks at 50. He is very shy and very, very grey. Michael was last seen in Lennoxtown in December with his friend Wilfried. Rumors suggest Wilfried was spotted in USA and France. If you know of Michael's whereabouts, please help him stay where he is.